Live in 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to episode 317 of the Board Game Barbecue podcast, brought to you by Advent Games, More Than Meeples, and our patrons. You've got Conor here in the chair again. Don't think you've gone back to the last episode. I am back here again. And with me, I have my Victorian brethren, representing the Big V. Dan, how are you, Dan?
I'm great, Conor. How are you, brother?
I'm good, and
I feel like I'm in safe hands tonight. You're an old hand at the hosting chair, so
you've never seen
gentle.
me. You've never seen me in the slips cordon. I can tell you that. That's a cricket reference for anyone who doesn't know cricket. And I'm glad this fellow's with me because after the shocking announcement at the end of last episode, I don't know if I could get through another one without this person here from QLD 80. What's up, dude?
Not much, man. And not much at all. I didn't know what a slips accordion was. I thought it was some kind of instrument.
Slips accordion. My auntie played the slips
we know Yankovic plays one of them,
Yeah.
So yes, at the end of last episode, we had Mitch announce that he is leaving us. I don't know about.
Are we allowed to mention his name?
Are we allowed to mention him?
He's dead to us now.
Someone, I posted a meme on Facebook, and I can't remember.
Was the meme he was the only honest treasurer we had? Was that the meme?
and actually, anyway, I put up a meme, and Scott Roby, who comes to lots of our city game days and has met us a couple of times, he was like, "Oh, is this meme about Mitch?" I was like, "Who's Mitch? I don't know Mitch. Who is this person?" So yes, 80, you're a bit miffed because you want an opportunity to stick the boot in one last time.
Well, we had actually prearranged to have this discussion maybe, I feel like 2 months ago. And I was like, "Oh, Mitch, when you get on, we are definitely, when we're next on together, we're going to talk about getting your bun steamed at Macca's. That's happening. I can't wait," because I gave Mitch some McDonald's advice off the back of someone else giving me some McDonald's advice. Because to be honest, I'm not a big McDonald's burger fan. And someone said, "No, you got to get the bun steamed. It's a thing." And I was like, "What?" And I thought it was a joke. And then when I went through the drive-thru, I was like, "Can I get the bun steamed?" And it came up on the menu item, steamed bun. And I was like,
serious?
Wow, this is a thing. And I tell you what, that took that burger from like a 3 out of 10 to a solid 5 out of 10.
Oh,
like it was.
That's hang on.
Settle down.
I had a steamed bun burger that you're like, "Bro, you got to." Adrian virtually shoved it in my face. He's like, "Bro, you got to try it." And then, I don't know, I'd say it goes from like a 30 out of 100 to like a 35 out of 100.
Doesn't it just make it sloppier though?
No, it kind of feels like a bit more of like a brioche type bun rather than just their stale piece of cardboard that you usually get it on. But hey, look, it was something I was like, "Oh, you got to try this, Mitch. You got to try it." And then he tried it, and Brad tried it, and Brad actually was like, "Oh, I don't think it's going to be good. It's going to be gross." And he actually turned around and said, "It's the best double quarter pounder I've ever had." So, they're McDonald's connoisseurs, these guys. So to get their backing is everything. So I was very excited to talk about it, but I've missed the opportunity. But I'm sure we'll talk about it again in the future somewhere. So
I'm sure. I did leave. I mean, I could definitely be outvoted. I did leave the offer if we were in a pinch for him to come back and blind us with the sheen off his head once more if he wanted to. But like we said, all the best to Mitch. But what I was able to talk about last week was some PAX news. Dan, we played a game together at PAX on the very last day. Virtually, it was like the last game I played before I made the trek back to the Bull. And
same.
Tom and Stu caught the plane back to Sydney.
And is that my cue to talk about Shipwreck Arcana?
It is your cue to talk about Shipwreck Arcana.
Funny one, this one, because Tom from our community has been wanting to teach me this game for ages. It's a cooperative deduction sort of number-based game, and so he knew it was going to be totally my jam. But he dragged me out of Designer Rally because I was pretty much doing a lot of Designer Rally for most of Playcom. And I said, look, I'll find some time where you can teach me this. And no sooner had he taught me the rules, then it was time to do the closing ceremony sort of thing. So Mitch is up on stage. Oh, sorry. There was this guy that was up on stage going, can all the admins, all the hosting team please come up on stage? And we were up there for about 20 minutes while we thanked all the volunteers and we did some announcements and some prizes. And by the time I got off the stage, Tom had already, I think he'd cracked the shits and packed it up because he figured I wasn't going to be able to rejoin him. So he busted it out at the end of PAX. And another funny story is we were playing Bristol at the time, and I got pushed out of the cart by someone who shall remain nameless, Adrian. But Tom came around and tapped me on the shoulder and goes, "Oh, do you want to play Shipwreck Arcana now?" I'm like, I do. And technically I'm out of the game because I've just been bumped out of the cart by Adrian, but I feel like I should just hang around and see how this game plays out. So I made him wait another half an hour or so before we finally sat down. Sorry, did you want to say something, Adrian? Clear your name?
I was waiting for you to push me out because basically it was probably my most amazing move I've ever done in a game of Bristol, if I'm honest. And I felt really bad about doing it because I could see the look on your face, and it's happened before. And I was like, oh, please push me out, Dan. We're both sick. We have to be sick. Yeah. I had a massive inkling that you were sick. And I knew that I was sick, obviously, because I was sick. So what I did was, unfortunately, we were at the front, Dan and I's cart, and I pushed Dan out to make other people believe that I was not sick, which worked a treat because then I think Stu jumped into my cart thinking, woohoo, we're going to pass the line, we're out. And when we got over the line, I was like, I was sick, fool. And he was like, no, I was healthy the whole time. So yeah, it was great. It
was a pretty decent power play. Credit where credit is due. I just worry now, whenever I play Bristol, there's going to be a meta game which is push Dan out of the cart because it's bloody funny.
Oh no, I don't think so.
I will be very hesitant to play that game again. I'll be perfectly honest, because I'm not a massive fan of play elimination games. And even when I got sick, I'm just like, I wasn't 100% sure how to play this. How's the best way to play it? Because the only other thing I thought I could do was just hang in there, and if we cross the line, we're all got the plague. But if everyone else does as well, then technically we win. So. Yeah, it was you probably put me out of my misery, Adrian, because I'm sitting there plagued to hell. Actually, I had it was actually the previous round, the previous mingle, I got plagued, and I think I was plagued with 8.
Yeah,
I had 2 4s, and then when we mingled the last time, I think I went right down to 3 or something like that. But it was obviously the damage was done. I'm just sitting there going, I don't really know how to play this properly. Just got to hang in there, I suppose. So. I don't even play that once a year. I usually just play it at PAX. So, anywho's, back to Shipwreck Arcana.
That was a good sizzle of Bristol. Very good.
Yeah. Well, it was more the experience. I don't think we explained how to play it. But so Shipwreck Arcana is actually a really, really good game. And one thing that I was really impressed with is that Tom and I started playing it initially just ourselves, and he taught me the rules. And it's you've got these fate tiles. That there's a bag of fate tiles numbered from 1 to 7, and there's 3 of each in the bag. And you draw 2 out, and there are these clue cards across the middle, and you're trying to use one of your fate tiles and placing it on one of the clue cards to give the other person an indication of what your other fate tile is. And the clue cards might be, if you have two tiles that are 1 away from each other or they're adjacent to each other in number value, place the higher one here. And so if I put a 6 there, then Tom knows it's a 5. But there might be another card that says, okay, if there are 2 even numbered tiles, if you have 2 even numbered tiles, place the higher one there. So then if I put a 6 there, well, Tom knows that I've got a 2 or a 4, but he doesn't exactly know what I've got. So we could take a punt, in which case if he's wrong, the doom increases around this doom card. And you're trying to win enough consecutive fate tiles, if you like, before the doom clock ticks down. And every time you make a mistake, the doom clock will actually tick an additional step. Another thing is the clue cards also have a couple of moon phases on them, and so if there's like 3 moon phases on them, you could use that clue card three different times. Once it's been used 3 times, it will actually flip over, and you will also increase the doom as well. So the clock is really running against you. But the thing that really impressed with the game is that it scales up really easily. So we played a quick game, then Stu jumped in, and we played with 3 players. Halfway through that game, Conor jumped in, and it was seamless. Like, you can jump in and jump out, and it didn't affect the game at all. It really, really played great at 2, played great at 3, played great at 4. What did you think, Conor?
Yeah, well, they're not normally my type of game. And I was in that situation where I think people were busy playing something else, and I sort of sat down, and I knew sort of Tom and Stu were heading off. So I actually kind of sat down sort of to say, see ya, like in case I didn't see him again. And then you're like, oh no, this is a really cool deduction game. I was like, well, I don't play many of them. So I thought it was really fun. Like I said, I'm not one for them. I find it hard to work out what other people are thinking, so find it hard to lead them. And I know that's part of the challenge, but I actually found the clues really, really straightforward. You could be like, yes, okay, I can definitely place a clue here and place a number down there. So having the numbers, having to only effectively have them guess the second number was really, really helpful when you're learning the game. And if you're not naturally good at those types of games or whatever. And then there was like the no section at all. So you had that section as well. So it kind of reminded me of Rings and things,
that's
where
true
it's
too.
like you've got that spot where it goes, it doesn't fit in any of these. So you would and that was actually super helpful, because when I jumped in, I think you had sort of whittled down to the last few numbers. I came in halfway through a round. And at that point, I was able to place it down there, and there was fewer numbers for you to choose from. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. I actually said, where can I get this game from? And Tom said, I bought it secondhand for a lot more than what I thought it was going to be worth. And I was
I've
like,
been looking
okay.
for it as well, because that's a small little box. Or actually, I remember what you were referring to, because one of the clue cards. In fact, the clue cards themselves remind me of Turing Machine. How there are so many different kinds of clues, and it's quite a. I don't know. There might be about maybe 20 different clue cards. You're only dealing 4 or 5 out, and so they're completely random, and they're different clues. Some of them work together, some of them don't. But one of them was, if one of your tiles is a 3, 4, or a 5, place the other tile here. And Connor didn't use that. So straight away, we knew that he didn't have a 3, 4, or a 5. So the fact that he wasn't using some of those clues still gave us information on what his hidden fate tile was. And I forgot to mention, the other kicker is that if no one guesses your fate, that's cool. And if you, by you playing one of your tiles to the card, doesn't make the moon phase expire, then nothing happens and it's the next player's turn. But when it comes around to your turn again, you draw a new fate tile. So now you're back to having 2, and you don't have to play the same one. You don't have to keep the same one. You probably want to try to, because then it completely throws everyone out, and you got to go, well, I have to basically reset our guesses. What we knew before may not remain true for the next guess. Or you can try and keep the same one and let people know. So yeah, I appreciate it. If you're listening, Tom, thank you so much for teaching me that, because you were 100% right. I absolutely loved it. And anyone who does like those sort of really simple deduction, and particularly cooperative deduction games, it's definitely worth a look.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, I'm not normally one for those games, but that was that definitely took my eye and took my attention. What is it? At first you had my attention, now you have my curiosity. So that was a pretty cool game. And yeah, shout out to Tom for that. 80, we played a game together. Did you play it twice and I played it once?
What was it? I couldn't remember.
Lords of Vegas.
So yeah, I played Lords of Vegas. Now I usually do listen to the show myself, and sometimes I'm doing edits, so I often hear some of the information. But did you talk about Lords of Vegas last week and about your experience with the other map?
I didn't, because now that the great man's gone, or the not so great man, it was not the experience that Mitch had sort of put it out to be, and Dan played in that too. And
yeah, and he admitted, I think we were all a bit disappointed, but we still had fun because we were playing just the 5 of us.
100%. There was times where Mark gambled with me, or I was on a hot streak where I just wasn't losing. People were coming into my casino and just handing me over money. And it was just like, and someone would draw a king and I would draw an ace. And it was like, yep, bad luck. Thanks for your money. Thanks for your patronage. And go on. You've played the base version.
So yeah, I played the base game, and Conor, Dan, Mitch, Mark, and Jace and Harry played the Tombstone map, which was a Western map, because obviously Mitch loves his Westerns and was really excited to play it. And it had an element of cards, the traditional 52 cards, playing cards, poker hands and all this kind of stuff, whereas the original is just sort of dice chucking and rolling and taking over different areas. I have to say, I wasn't like I was never like enamored with playing it like at the start, and also from prior hearing about the game. But as soon as the game started and I started to understand what was happening, I absolutely loved it. I had an amazing experience playing that, and like I said, it was nothing to do with that I won, but it was really close, and I managed to accelerate ahead a bit. And I think the other guys could have shut me down at one point, but it just got to a point where I was just had a good engine, and I was just petering along just ahead of them. But I thought it was a fantastic game. I thought it was really, really fun. It wasn't what I expected in a weird way. Like, there was a bit more strategy and cunning to the game. I thought it was going to be a lot more just rolling dice and area control, even though it had those elements. I just felt that the strategy behind it could be really quite deep behind the game. So I think you guys should try the base game again.
I would love
you might
to
have a very different experience.
Yeah, so
I sat in on the tail end of the base game as you guys were playing it. It looked really, really fun. I was looking forward to playing the Tombstone one. I think so. There's a few subtle changes with the Tombstone map that obviously changes the way it was played. One of them was that the blocks are smaller, and then you've also got a particular character from the Wild West that you can use, sort of employ them. But we didn't really sink our teeth into that sort of mechanic too much.
I have to say as well, a big part of it, I felt there was almost Mitch GMing the game. He was the bank, and he just kept the game rolling with good momentum and pace and making people make decisions, because rather than otherwise, people are thinking too much and it does slow that game down. It should really be an hour and a half, hour and 45-minute game, which to be honest, I think our game maybe went for 2 hours, maybe with the teach. I can't remember, but it didn't feel at any point I was stuck in the game or it was a slog, whereas I think the Tombstone map may have had the different effect. I think it felt a bit longer than it should have been.
100%.
What it was. So.
I think in the 2 hours, I think Harry and I were joking, but it was actually no joke. I think we had 3 turns each in the first 2 hours, because there were things going around that you were happening not on your turn. It felt like there was a lot happening. But in terms of the decision space, that only happens on your turn, and it was very few and far between. That also could be because we played at 6.
Yeah.
That's why it took a long time for it to come around to you.
A lot of people, and a lot of times where I think in the original game, the resolution would have been really quick, that it wasn't in this case because everyone was involved. So, yeah, it made things interesting. But like you said, I could very much see how the crux of that game would be super entertaining, listening to what Mitch had spoken about, because I believe I was on an episode that Mitch sizzled the new version. And it was, man, I just wanted to play the original after playing that, based on what you had said previously.
I wanted to go to Vegas after.
Yeah, true. Very true. I said it on the PAX episode. I had great enjoyment hearing you guys play, and I was 3 tables away because Conor was packing a sad, and then other people around him were ridiculing him, saying, "Do you want an ice cream?" Like, just giving him grief from like in jokes, which is just funny as to experience. So,
Mark,
yeah,
I was Mark's whipping boy for the weekend, which is fine. I'm more than happy. I'm more than happy with that. Yeah. So that was Lords of Vegas. So it was pretty good. Yes, Heidi.
I've also been playing, and I mean binge playing today, the Harry Potter Hogwarts battle. And it's another one of those ones where like MJ bought this game, man, I'd say almost 3 years ago, right? I reckon it might have sat on the shelf for almost 3 years. And we've always said, oh, it'd be great to play it with him when he's a bit older and he has a bit more knowledge. of games and how they run. And we started playing it at 6:30 this morning, and we didn't finish playing it until 1:30 this afternoon.
That sounded like me playing Dead Cells. That's the
awesome.
exact same thing that I did. I was like, I can't stop playing this game. It's so good.
Because it's the first time Finn's really sort of played a legacy game, even though there's not a massive amount of legacy elements in the game, but you are getting progression and you are getting new cards added to the card pool, to the shop, the market. But it was just really great to see him be able to read all the cards, understand fully what's happening, to the point of he'll say like, "Oh, stupefy, that's this, and that." And I'm then in my head going, "Is that what that does?" I can't remember. And like he remembers all of the cards better than I could. Do you know what I mean? Which is kind of fun to see. But it is, if you like Harry Potter, it is phenomenal. Like MJ and Finn love Harry Potter. They were so excited when they got Dobby, and then Hagrid was a card, and they got this, and then there's all these different potions and stuff that you buy and add to your deck. And I have to say, it is so smooth. Like, it is such a smooth game. It is like 5 or 6 pages of a rule book, and you can just make a start and just get through it and start making the game happen. And it just is good. It's solid. Like, it's really, really solid. We played to game 6, I believe, of 7. So we almost finished it in a day, but it was a great day. And we actually figured out that, some minor spoilers here for this game, but you know, you start as a young character. You start as the sort of profile picture of one of the younger people from Hogwarts in the different houses, and you can pick your character and you basically stick with that character the entire time. I was Hermione, MJ was Ron, and Finn was Harry. And essentially, like, as they age and as you go through the game and level up and get experience, the character profile picture changes, and as they age in the movies. So it's kind of tied to the films. So we figured out that game 1 is like year 1, game 2 is like year 2, and they added characters in from those films as they progressed. So we actually played the soundtrack for the first film for game 1, and then the soundtrack for the second film, game 2, and we just kept progressing the soundtracks. And it was great. It was like a really immersive experience. I thought it was a brilliant deck builder, super easy to understand. There's no crazy cards in there that you would struggle to understand. They're very easily recognizable of what the actions do and what the text means. But by the 6th game, we were pulling off some crazy moves. Like, and it felt really exciting. And, you know, you felt the combos coming through really heavily. And it was good to see we all had different strategies and different things. So I was focusing mainly on allies and keeping my deck really small, and then buying this special potion that allowed you to basically double the ability of a particular ally that you'd played that round. So I was able to just pump out these ally abilities and double down, but I wasn't buying items or spells, but Finn and MJ were buying a bucket load of damage. And it was just great. Super brilliant. I really enjoyed it. And you can reset it back to the base game and play it all over again. So it's not like a legacy game where it's one and done. It's very easy to reset. All the boxes are in there. All of the cards have got on the top right-hand corner, game 1, game 2, game 3, and you just basically put them all back in the boxes where they started, and you just go again. So,
do you think you will?
I actually could see us doing it again, maybe even when my mum comes out and playing it with 4 of us and having the 4th character rather than the 3-player. Like, I can definitely see that. And for Finn to sit down and play a game for over 7 hours back to back and just saying, like, we got to go again. He was the one that was driving that as well. He's like, we're going to play it again, right? The 2nd game. And then the 3rd game and then the 4th game, we just kept playing. We'd have a quick break, had some breakfast, and then kept playing and played the 5th and the 6th game after that. And the games do get progressively longer. So the first game is quite short, and then the second game gets a little bit more, and you're adding more characters and more spells and more enemies to fight and different mechanics around that. But yeah, it was super good. Like, I would suggest anyone that likes Harry Potter and wants a, and I would say that this is like a family weight game, like 8+, they could play this game. Yeah, I really think so. Especially if they have understanding of card games and other games, it will be no problem. But any Harry Potter fan would absolutely adore this game.
I've
doubt.
always tossed up to get it for my sister and my niece, because my sister's a massive Harry Potter fan. My niece was a massive Harry Potter fan. She sort of drifted in that. But I think if it was an IP that she really liked, she'd probably play it anyway. So
Yeah.
it might not be the flavour of the month, but she's thought, oh, I love Harry Potter and whatever. So yeah, that
Maybe I'll
sounds-
get it for Jen for Christmas. Because speaking of, this is a crazy happenstance, coincidence, but she's actually in the other room watching Prisoner of Azkaban with my boys right now, because she's been
nice.
waiting for ages to show them the Harry Potter films, and they're slowly working their way through them. So maybe instead of her buying me a board game, maybe I can buy her a board game and
And if it turns out to be, if it's a stink, then you can just blame me and say, that idiot,
it's crap.
what's he talking about?
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, that was great.
I wanted to quickly talk about our game I played with Tom, Dan, and I don't know if either of you two have played this game before. It's called The Bloody Inn.
I haven't. And
I have.
Yeah,
Jay has it.
I want
you
it.
got it. Yeah. I think you'd really like it, Dan. It's pretty funny. It's small, but there's a lot of game in there, as many of these sort of quasi-classic smaller games have. So you're pretty much playing an innkeeper who can welcome people into their inn, but can also kill people and then bury them. And when you kill them and bury them, you get particular bonuses. So it's a card game. It has a very small footprint in terms of setup and all that type of stuff. And you learn it really, really quick. There's not much rule overhead. You're pretty much just taking 2 actions a turn. And what I really like, and what I think is really clever, is it's all about card economy. So while you're earning money, if guests stay in your room, if you build a particular annex onto your inn, which will let you keep more people under your inn when you kill them, but everything is paid by the cards, and each action, when you use a particular card for that action, you get to keep that card, otherwise you spend it and it goes in the discard pile. So along with the peasants, which they're not wild, but they just don't have a color, you've also got blue cards, red cards, grey cards, and purple cards, and they're all used for one of the 4 main actions. So bribing is welcoming someone to your hand effectively to work for you, building an annex, killing a guest, which is always fun, and then burying a corpse. Because if you kill a guest and the body's there, and at the end of the round there's police in the inn, then you lose coins and you lose the body. So you don't get arrested, because they can't prove that it was you that killed them, but you're just found with the body. So, yeah, and then you just effectively miss out on the coins for burying the person. So it's a little bit more. But what do you think of it, Adi?
Yeah, I mean, it's a game about very morbid themes. So MJ instantly snapped up and asked for it as a Christmas Secret Santa present for a board gaming thing that she did. But yeah, it's really good. It's really solid. I love the art style as well. It really just looks kind of different. I can't really describe it, if I'm honest. It almost reminds me of like puppeteering in a weird way.
It's like a kind of oil painty. It's clear what the people are, but it's just that, and again, it ties into the theme. It's slightly off-putting. You don't want to stare at the cards too long because you start to feel uneasy.
It's almost like Nightmare Before Christmas. If they were people, it's just that they're all kind of weird shapes and they're not quite proportional.
You know what it's like? This is drawing a longish bow, but you know how in the Enter the Spider-Verse, the Kingpin's like he's not shaped properly.
Yeah.
That's what it's like. So the bigger characters are big and square, and the skinny characters really narrow with big heads and stuff like that. So it's that type of vibe.
Yeah, and it's just really solid. It's a great game. It's also quite. I think it's quite hard to get, or it was for a while.
Oh no, it's
maybe they've
hard
done a
to get.
reprint. I don't know. Yeah, okay, it's hard to get. No, it's
I
a
think
great
it might
game.
be in alpha or beta on Board Game Arena at the moment as well.
I reckon you're right.
So that may be where I'll have to cut my teeth on the game, because we wanted to play it for a long time.
It's fantastic. It's such a quick game. And again, not like I said before, not much rule or overhead. I was able to jump in and play it. Tom, Stu, and his other buddy Mitch had not our Mitch 2, as he was dubbed after our game of monikers. We played it. They had played it a couple of times before, and it actually was. Tom stormed home with the win, as he's slowly becoming known for, which is only slightly annoying. But yeah, the rest of us were sort of in and about the pack. Of course, I came last, no surprise to anyone. But yeah, bloody in. I would say play it if you get your hands on it, but it doesn't sound like you can. But I think, like you did say, Dan, it's on in alpha on PGA. So if you have a premium
Yeah,
account,
there was someone in our Discord the other just this weekend who was trying to get some games going, and they were having some technical issues, but they did mention that it was available on Board Game Arena. So yeah, definitely, that'd be great.
very good. Now, Dan, the next game I want to hear about
I
is
got two really quick card games
yes,
that I want to talk about, and I don't want to take too long on it. One of them has been mentioned on the show before. This is a game called Peas, which I asked Adrian, and Adrian kindly picked a copy up for me when he was in Japan earlier in the year, and then he picked himself a copy up and talked about it on the show before I got a chance to talk about it, the bugger. But I got it to the table when some guy from Sydney came down and stayed at my place for a few days during PAX, and it's really cool. It was exactly what I thought it was going to be. It's such a simple little two-player trick-taker game, but they've found another unique twist with the trick-taking mechanic, and that is that you're vying for these peas that are all in a pod. There's 10 peas in a row, and you get dealt 10 cards each, and you're basically just playing a card on opposite sides of these peas. Some of them are worth positive points, some of them are worth negative points, and the way you score is once all your cards are laid out, you start at one end of the pea pod, and whoever played a card on that end one will actually go first, and so whatever card they played is the leading suit, if you like, and then whoever wins that trick, their side is the leading suit for the next one, and then whoever wins that trick, their side is the leading suit for the next one. And so you might have, when the game starts, you might be playing a trick on, you might be playing a high card on the one that's on the P that's worth 3 points. You might be playing a high card on the P that's worth 2 points, but you don't know what the leading suit's going to be until they're all laid out, and then you suddenly work through them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and see. So you're kind of reverse engineering. Yeah, I'm going to play this one here, but if I want to win this one, it means I have to win this one, and I don't want to win that one. That one's worth that P is worth -3, and it was such a head scratcher. It's such a simple game, but it was such a head scratcher, and we actually loved it. What did you think of at 80?
I find it always harder to lose the ones that you don't want to win. Like that's harder than winning the ones that you're just trying to scrape a couple of cheeky points from. Once you start to win because of the way the suits sit, all of a sudden you might win like 4 in a row and they're all negative, and you're like, oh god, I've won all of those.
Yeah.
How has this happened to me?
Yeah.
And it's good. I definitely really like it, but I found that sometimes you can have a runaway winner for someone who just dominates. If you know trick takers very well, and you just need to, and it's a different kind of trick taker, like you said, because it's got that twist on mechanic. So you need to be really aware of that. But it's brilliant. Like, it's so small. It packs up in like a tiny little box. You can take it absolutely anywhere.
Even the box that it comes in, which is a small box, there's so much room in that. It could easily have been like a button
Twice
shy
the
wallet,
size.
you know?
It's twice the size of what you need. Like, you could cut it in half. It's great. It's super solid, super fun, great art. And I even like that the first player marker is yet again just another card. Like, you don't need to put a coin or a chip or a piece of wood or anything. It's just super simple. So
if I haven't said it already, thank you for grabbing that
no worries, man.
for me, because I really, really loved it. Now, my other game that I want to talk about, and this is another Japanese game that I don't own, but I've been playing it on Board Game Arena, and I am obsessed with this game. I've only discovered it during the week. I've played it 42 times already. I got a 76% hit rate, though, so I'm actually doing pretty good. I've won 32 out of 42. And it's called Nana Toridori. And it is a card shedding, ladder climbing game. Think Scout, but instead of sets and runs, this one is purely sets. And the way it works is you get dealt a series of cards. I think depending on how many players, but you might get dealt between 8 and 10 cards. And the way they're dealt to you is the way that you have to keep them in your hand, just like Scout. Now, there's no reversible way. It's just purely the way they're dealt is the way they are. And the numbers only go up from 1 to 7. Now, you're going to laugh. The theme is actually that they're all birds, and the theme is like they're the bird party, and you're trying to get the birds home after the party safely. Like, it's completely arbitrary. There's absolutely nothing to it. But the way the game works, and it's so fantastic. I'm just so enamored with this game, is that it's just your standard ladder climbing game. So Adrian might play a 1 from his hand, and then I'll play a 2 from my hand, or I'll play a 3 or something that beats his hand. Now remember that because it's like Scout, if I take one from the middle, then the cards will actually, it'll close a gap. So if I had a 6 and a 6, and if my hand was say 6 1 6 da 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 da, I took the 1 out. Now my 2 sixes are side by side. So in a later game, I can actually play a pair of 6s.
Mm.
But the other kicker is that when I play to the table, and I actually now I'm now leading, whatever hand I beat, I can choose to discard that, put it in discard, or I can choose to take it and put it in my hand. So if Adrian plays a 1, I play a 2, but I've got a 1 in my hand. I can take that 1, put it in my hand next to my 1. Now I've got a pair of 1s. And later in the game, it starts to get really, really cool, because someone might have a pair of 3s. I've got a pair of 4s. I'll pay my pair of 4s, take their pair of 3s, put it next to my pair of 3s. Now I've got 4 3s in my hand. But there's that
Nice.
weird
That's cool.
juxtaposition between, you're trying to shed your cards. First player to lose all their cards wins. So do you discard the hand you just beat, or do you put it in your hand? A, you're giving yourself a better set to play later in the game, but you haven't decreased the number of cards in your hand at all. So it's a really, really sort of juicy sort of decision. It's like, well, I'm going to actually take those cards. I've just played 3 3s, and now I'm taking 3 1s, putting them in my hand. But yes, now I've made 4 1s where I can go bam. And so towards the end of the game, you might be looking around the table, and everyone's still got like 6, 7, 8 cards in their hand, but suddenly it's like, bam, there's 4 4s. Well, there's 4 7s. Well, there's 5 1s. And everyone's just like shedding all these massive sets that you've slowly accumulated and hand manipulated during the game. So it's kind of hard to tell who's winning, although you can actually, if you want to count cards, you could potentially see who's picking up what. So if I play 3 5s, you play 3 7s, but then you take my 3 5s and put them in your hand. I'm like, oh, look out. Connor's got a truckload of 5s here.
Yeah. He's going to
He's
drop
going
a
to
bomb.
unleash that
Yeah.
next time round. So it is so much fun. I think I've got 1 or 2 games going on Board Game Arena with some people in the community, Jonathan and Chris, but I've been playing it just in bed on my phone, just game after game after game, and I'm bloody loving it. This, for such a simple little thing, like it could even be top 10 material. I'm having so much fun. I'm
Oh,
having
that's
so much
awesome.
fun with this game, and my next mission is to try and track it down and see if I can get a physical copy of it.
Yeah.
So, and that's Nanatori Dory.
Yeah. When it's got the Tory and Nana, I was like, oh, okay, so like 4 something gates or something like that. But yeah, I think no 4 7 7. I had this argument for was a 7 something gates. Cool. So we might move on to the meat and potatoes.
If you want to buy the latest games, there's no better place than Advent Games. They have a huge selection of games with heaps of different categories like light and fun, Euro heavyweights, or hard to find games to help you find the best fit for your game night. On top of being a great bloke and an avid gamer himself, Dean provides excellent customer service, is very responsive to questions or inquiries, and offers flat rate shipping across Australia. So to grab your games, head to adventgames.com.au. That's adventgames.com.au.
80, let's talk about a game that I love, that you have fallen in love with, created by a friend of the pod in Sam McDonald. Tell us a little bit more about Circadians Chaos Order.
Yeah, well, I actually got to playtest this a long time ago. A long, long time ago. And that was when I was in a massive kind of heavy Euro binge fest. And that was my kind of meat and potatoes. That's what I was playing. That was what I enjoyed playing. Really enjoyed it. Didn't like people messing with my stuff. Got really upset when people broke all my bits, and I was very not happy about it. But, my game taste has changed, and I've enjoyed more interaction and different elements of those kind of games. And I pulled this out recently because I had a copy and I just wanted to play it on the table physically. And I know that there'd been a World Cup recently of the game, which is actually won by Kenny, who's a member of our Discord community and a board game designer himself in the game Scrap. And yeah, I actually watched some of that online World Cup for a little bit. And yeah, I kind of was like, man, I got to get this to the table again and give this another shot. And I loved it. Like, I can't describe how perfect the synergy of Euro and area control and asymmetrical factions melded together, how smooth it works and how brilliant it is as a design. This game is absolutely top tier, and I have had a blast playing it. I'm actually playing it at the game day as well. Going to play it 4-player at the game day. Really looking forward to it. So I'll give you a bit of a rundown of some of the game because it is a beast. Like, you could not describe every element of this game in in an hour, basically. But it is a area control game, which is kind of a round based game, right? So you play out these rounds, and there's 6 rounds. You control these particular areas at different times. They have these relics that, when in round 1, you're trying to sort of vie for the control of relic 1, and then relic 2 and relic 3, 4, 5, 6. And those are randomly assigned around the map. So they could be opposing sides. So you might have to go from one side of the map to the other side of the map very quickly. And there's different buildings and stuff that you can build out, like outposts and stuff, to help you do this kind of stuff. But essentially, everyone plays differently, which is really interesting. And it's kind of that root kind of coin game style thing where everyone has not only different asymmetrical powers and different asymmetrical abilities and asymmetrical leaders and asymmetrical units, you also have asymmetrical ways to win the game.
So, for example, I, in our latest game, played as the Circadians, and they don't have a true home base. They're super mobile, but they also have a small number of units because they're awfully powerful. So they take as many hits, or twice as many hits. They hit twice as hard, and they're all about, they're effectively like the humans that have come to this planet, the Circadians. But then you've got something like the AI, which is many in number. But for
That's what I
them
played
to
recently.
win, but for them
Great.
to win, it's not as simple as just overwhelming certain areas or winning battles. You've also got to win in a particular way. So that's having
The AI,
different
they need to wound. So
ways to
they
win.
don't need to win fights, they need to wound. And that's really interesting because you could lose your fights, but if you're wounding them and taking them out, that doesn't matter because the AI is basically like Skynet. The robots die, then they go back on the production line, then they get rebuilt again. So they're like a swarm of locusts by the end because you're just building units, building units, building units. But the problem is that the other players know that, oh, well, I just got to play a lot of shields against them and defend my units so we don't take any wounds, and therefore I can kind of counter that. But it's really interesting. And even at 2-player, this game is phenomenal. The map's smaller, it feels tighter, it's more chess-like. You're trying to sort of outwit one person, you're not having to outwit many. Yeah, it's absolutely phenomenal. And even just the pricing mechanic to take the actions is so clever. Like, it's just brilliant. Like, essentially at the start of the round, you set the prices for the actions. And how that works is, say in a 2-player game, you have 2 prices each on these tokens, and then you place them down next to the various actions, be it discover, build, harvest, recruit, or move. And then that sets the price to initiate and take that action this round. Now, sometimes there's a split on the costing for that action. Some of it goes to the supply, and some of it actually comes to you. So, in a particular round, I think it was the 4th round of the game that I played, I could see that Matt couldn't take an action that he wanted to take if I had taken a previous action and given him some energy as the payment. So it would have been suboptimal for me to take an action. I was much better off just not taking the action and then him having no money or energy to take further actions down the track, because the actions kind of cascade down one after the next in a particular order. So I loved that, because as a player that's not very experienced with this game at all, even be able to see things like that is a very kind of fun nuance to the game. I can look at that and go, I know that this is the best option for me to unfortunately not take these actions, but I know it's worse for him. And it was just brilliant. I absolutely loved it. And I love the aesthetic. I love the pieces. You get these little tuck boxes, which are like these little cardboard boxes that you build, and all of the pieces fit inside for each faction. And at the start, when I started to make them, I was like, this feels a bit gimmicky, and I don't know how this will play out because I've had issues with other sort of inserts and that before, but not this one. It's absolutely necessary, and it's done so well. It's great. You can get all your cards in there, all your leaders, everything. And it's really funny because every action has auxiliary actions. Some of the auxiliary actions are to upgrade your units. Some of them are to employ leaders, and the leaders get upgraded as well. They can flip and become like a boss version, and they've all got different powers. That's not even talking about the combat, because when you combat with somebody, you have a little wheel, and that's really clever because you set it to different positions, whether you want to wound, shield, have more strength. Two of the sides actually have like a dice that you can roll to buff up your strength and your shield. So there's a little bit of a risk sort of reward element in that, which is always fun in a game, but not too much. It's not like you don't feel like you've been completely outdone by someone rolling that dice, but it has that tiny element of like, if I get the 4 fists, the 4 strength that I need, I can actually win this fight, but I just need that. And you roll it and you get 3 and you're like, I just needed that one more. And that is fun. Like, everyone enjoys that. You know what you're in for, but it hasn't completely ruined your game. But it was that pivotal battle where it's like, I just need this one dice to land on this one side, just this one time, please. And you roll it doesn't happen, and you're devastated. But yeah, it's just brilliant. And there's also combat cards that you kind of tuck onto the face of the actual wheel, and you can bluff. You can actually place the combat card face down, and then when you reveal what you're going to play when you battle, you go, okay, cool. I wasn't even playing this card, but you can make it look like you are playing a card to make other players do things. But those combat cards also interact with other parts of the action board. It is insane, the depth of the game. And another thing as well, I've played it with different factions, and I've never felt like it's imbalanced. I've never felt like it's a whitewash. Even with 2-player, it's very tight. It's very tug of war back and forward. And yeah, I think it's a great game. It's actually like top tier, like absolutely top tier game. I can't talk highly enough of it. I'm smiling while I talk about it. I played it on a Wednesday night.
I'm smiling hearing you
on
talk
a Friday. Yeah, it's brilliant. Like, it really is. So
yeah. I mean, everyone that I've spoken to about the game. So I played a game with Harry, Joe, and Tom. And so there was 4 of us. And everyone's like, this game is incredible. Joe said it hasn't gotten the praise that it deserves.
100%.
And I remember talking to Sam a little bit about it. And, they had this whole Circadians sort of, not universe, but series that they wanted to get done. And then he's like, and we actually spoke to him a couple of weeks ago. He said, yeah, I don't know if that'll continue, but obviously Sam's just picked himself up and kept going. But yeah, it's like, you're like 80, it's so good and so well balanced. And the combat, it's funny that you talk about the combat and the dice rolling, because it got to a point for us where I want to say Joe just needed a die roll to go his way, and he probably would have won the game. Now, that's not to say that it all came down to randomness, because he still played really, really, really well. It got to the point where he effectively had pushed himself to the point where if he hadn't have gone for that last combat, it would have given someone else a chance to win. So by him pushing it that tad further, he sort of, rather than it being, a 70-30% chance for him to win, it still was at like a 50-50. So it's not random, like it's not dice chucking or anything like that.
No, not at all.
But it also adds that little bit of tension, like you said, with the bluffing with the card. You sort of go, like, do they have? I've counted. I don't know what they could do to win. Like, I don't know what they like. I've counted the people, and even when we were playing with Sam was quickly counting, going, you never know what Adrian could do, because I can't remember who play tested it with us. Adrian, was it Mitch?
I think Mitch. Yeah. I can't remember who else.
Yeah. So that was heaps of fun just playtesting. And then when I backed it on Kickstarter and got it, I was like, oh, this is so good. And you're right, on the table, it's
on the table,
it's just so good.
absolutely
The meatballs,
top
the different shapes
tier.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's got that Garfield sheen, if that makes sense, like that, and it's Sam Phillips artwork. So this was one of the first games I saw Sam do the art for, and I was just enamored. And now he's doing so much art for Bobby, Sam, and Shem as well. And yeah, like you said, I can't talk about this game. There's a massive fan of Root, and then also a fan of Euro games. It's just that perfect merge of the two, that area control with the Euro. Because if you ignore the Euro side of things, to quote South Park, you're going to have a bad time.
You're going to have a real bad time.
Energy. You have to be smart enough with your buildings, spending of your energy. Yeah.
And like the harvesting, you place out, you can upgrade harvest tokens, upgrade the mines so that you can harvest more, and it is crazy. I haven't even talked about like the player boards. They're all individual. You have different foundations that you place to put different buildings on. It is insane. Like it's brilliant. Like, I mean, I've played Root, I don't know, maybe 4 times, and I've played the app maybe 7 or 8. For me, I way prefer this. Maybe because the Euro elements that I really enjoy, I just prefer it. It's just my personal opinion. I just prefer this game tenfold. It's just great. But yeah, it's just got so much. Like, you could talk about this forever. There's even the pinning. You haven't even spoken about like the pinning, that you can pin units and stop units from leaving a certain territory if you overwhelm them and stop them from moving. And that becomes, I mean, we started to delve into that strategy with one of our games, but I mean, I can imagine if you're very good at this game, you'd be mathing out stuff like that and figuring out exactly how efficient you can be to stop other players moving around the map freely. And especially with me, I played AI, I have so many units, so it's quite hard to stop me because I'm like a swarm of robots. But yeah, brilliant. Absolutely top tier. Love it. Playing it at the game day, hopefully twice. So
yeah, well, if you go into the busy game day, make sure you get into one of these games if they're not all taken already, because yeah, it is such a great experience. It's so much fun. If you're into, you do have to be into area control games.
100%.
You have to at least be open to the idea of them. But if you also like Euro games and are happy to play some area control, then this is definitely the game for you. I can't speak of it any more highly than you have, AD, and I'm a huge fan of it. So yeah, that is Circadians. That's spelt with C-I, by the way, Adrian, not C-E-R like you've done on the run sheet. Circadians Chaos Order by Sam McDonald and Garfield Games. Dan, I love sushi, and you're going to talk about Maki Master.
Tell you what, getting hungry when you ever played a game that makes you hungry.
All the time.
This is it. Now, I mentioned Maki Master and a few other KTBG games that I was fired up for a couple of weeks ago, that they were on their way. They Kickstarter fulfilled, and I grabbed Cafe Bearers, and I grabbed Dice Veggies and Power Plants, I think I grabbed. Anyway, Maki Master was the one that fulfilled, and it's fan-bloody-tastic. Like, the component quality of KTBG games is first rate anyway, but with Maki Master, they've really heavily leaned into the theme. So the board that you played on looks like a sushi mat, and the cubes that you earn, which are worth victory points, are little wasabi ones. Now there's an upgraded version, the deluxeified version, which is like a little splodge. Looks like a little splodge of wasabi, and then there's a pantry with all these different items that the trays can actually come out of the box and sit right next to the board. So it's easy setup, really quick setup, really quick pack down. But what you're doing in Maki Master is you're completing these recipes, and the recipe cards are either 2 component, 3, 4, or 5 component. Obviously, the harder they are to complete, greater the reward is, victory points, and also a couple other little actions and things that you get. But what you're doing on your turn is simply taking anything you want out of the pantry and putting it on the board. And the item that you place on the board, whatever it's adjacent to, if that fulfills through adjacency one of your recipes, then that's done. So if someone else puts something, let's say Adrian puts down maki, which is the rice with the seaweed around it, and also there was also some salmon there, and that was what I needed to do for mine. Well, that doesn't count. you're only allowed to complete a recipe if you place one of the ingredients on the board. And the board, Jen and I played a couple of times now. I think it's 5x7, but then you can because you're covering up a couple of columns, but you can open those columns up for more players. It plays to 4 people. And then there's other things. There's other action cards that you can earn during the game to allow you to do other things. And it might be that you can use an action card to stack an item on top of another ingredient to complete the row in the order that you want. Or you can maybe move them around a little bit. So I can take one from here and swap it with that one. So there's a really cool spatial puzzle element to it, because the board is only limited. Like I said, it's only 5x7, or I think it's 5x7. And so eventually you're going to run out of space, and that's when the last round triggers. So you need to rely on some of these action cards to actually take something off and put it back in the pantry, or it might give you an extra turn, so you can use this action. And the actions are all chop or slice, or they're all sort of culinary terms, which is really, really cool as well. And then you're just fulfilling these recipes. It's super, super simple to play, but we've been having a lot of fun with it. One thing I really, really think is really clever, they've introduced these little cups. They're almost like little sake cups. They're like little wooden bowls. And also at the end of the game, whoever wins, you're supposed to pick up, because you put one bowl on the board for each person. So we put 2 bowls out. And at the end, whoever wins, you both pick up a bowl and you cheers. So, of course, that's a nice little, we just get a little clink. Congratulations, well done. It reminds me of Zombie Kids Evolution, where when you lock the gate, the 2 players are supposed to high five when you lock the gate successfully, like a little cooperative thing. But what you're doing is, depending on how many players there are, each player just randomly puts a sake bowl on the board in one of the spaces. And what that means is that as the game starts to expire, you can move a sake to another, you can move a bowl to another location to put a recipe down. It's not like blocking a space, but what it does is, as the game starts to expire, and let's say it's your last round before the official last round triggers, you've still got 3 or 4 spaces where you can place a tile. You're not limited to, well, I've only got 2 spots left, or if you're the last player, it's like, well, I've only got 1 spot left. That's not very fair. Technically, you've got 3 spots. You've got the 1 vacant spot plus the 2 spots where the sake bowls are. So you've still got, even though you're the last person before the end game triggers, you've still got 3 options, as opposed to having, well, what's the old saying? You take away 2 choices and you're left with no choice instead of 1, because you can't put it anywhere else except the last spot. So I think the inclusion of that, which I haven't seen in a game before, I think that's a really clever little mechanic to allow you to getting gridlocked, so you can't actually put anything anywhere. And then there is actually one round after that, because there are certain actions you may have accumulated in your turn which allow you to, like I said, stack and put an ingredient on top of another ingredient, or shift things around, so you can actually move a tile and put it where a cup is, and put the sake cup where that one was. And now you've got, maybe you've perfectly aligned the exact 5 ingredients you want to make this nigiri roll, which is going to give you 11 points plus some wasabi as well. It's really, really clever. I would really want to play it at 4 and see how the dynamic changes. But like I said, that opens up a couple of extra columns on the board itself. But I think KTBG, they just make solid games. Like I loved Creature Comforts, really enjoyed Maple
I was going to
Valley.
say it's Meeple Valley, yeah.
Yeah, Maple Valley, Creature Comforts. And like I said, I haven't got stuck into Dice Veggies yet, but I know the boys are going to enjoy that one. But even the catalogue goes back to Fossilis and Wreck Raiders, and just really, really sort of strong quality components. They're not the brain burnery sort of Circadians Chaos Order kind of games, but for a good solid sort of 45-minute game at the table for a group of people. And this one's great. I love the fact. It leans into it just like Sushi Go did. Like do you know how long I played Sushi Go Party for before I realized that the track around the outside is actually like a sushi train track, and the little pieces that you move on that track are tiny little soy sauce bottles. I had no idea. So with this, because I've got not the Deluxify, but the Kickstarter version, there's some expansions. The expansions have a soy sauce bottle with little soy sauces. There's ginger. There's a couple other little things. So they've just leaned into the theme so heavily, and I'm here for it. I love it.
Yes, so that is Maki Master. 80, are you interested in playing this?
I've played a couple of sushi games and they've both been great. Do you know what I mean? And the steamed up as well was really good. The dumpling one. So yeah, they have a good spot. And I haven't played. I've played Meeple Valley, but what's the other one? Creature Comforts,
Creature
right? Is that what you said? I haven't played that one yet.
Oh, that's
but
great.
yeah, I'd like to give that a go at some point. I see it everywhere. It's like always out of the game days. It's so popular. So
Yeah, that's got a really cool little sort of almost like a gambling pressure luck element with the dice rolling right at the start of your turn, which can either work out really well or go a little bit sideways. Then you got to pivot and pivot. You got to pivot and try and reassess your game. Yeah, it's good.
Very good. So that's Maki Master. I'll round out the sizzles by talking about our latest D&D one-shot adventure that we had on Friday. So again, I won't go into the whole thing because that would take the nearly 5 hours that the campaign took, but the one-shot took. So again, Mark, who is raised in our Discord community, many of you might have met Mark at PAX, who was sort of palling around with us. He very graciously he DM'd the session, and it was a Halloween session where we had to investigate Tasha's kiss. Tasha was a bard, a very successful musician in the realm, and she had been taken over by this, I guess this mysterious being. So she had been a musician, and then lots of the townsfolk had been conned into heading into her wagon, and then the wagon ended up being a fun house, and there was so many great moments in this one. So in my party was Joe, the host Joe, Chris, who is known as Talkium on our Discord as well, and many of you know Chris from the Sydney community as well, and Matt, and then Tom came in a little bit later. And shout out to Mark again, not just for running the session, but Tom had to come in a little bit later. And so Mark reached out to Tom and said, "Oh, how late do you think you're going to be?" He said, "Oh, anyway, from half an hour to an hour." And almost to the minute, Mark had organised Tom's character to just come in to the adventure, and it literally happened to the minute. So we got up to a part, and then Tom jumped into the Discord chat, and he was able to just sneak in and start playing as his character. So that was really cool.
nice.
I played this time as a gnomish rogue, so that was good. I don't normally play as rogues. Tom played as a dwarven cleric who was like a believer in the death god. Chris played as a bard who played the bagpipes, whose name was Mac Fleetwood. So that was very good. Yeah, so Mac.
I love a good pun.
Yeah, it was very punny. And Mac Fleetwood every so often would play a song, but he would play. And at one point there was something being like locked up, and he's like, "Well, I'll play Chains." So he played Chains by Fleetwood Mac, and it was very, very clever. And Matt played as a human sorceress, like an ice sorceress, and Joe was a human monster hunter ranger who had a curse put on him, so he was a little bit more devilish and things like that. And it was quite funny because what had happened in certain points, while we had certain character traits and archetypes of our characters, Mark swapped them on us. So there was a point where Joe started off his character being really, really, really gruff and sort of, tough, and I'm in the wilds and all this type of stuff. But based on the storyline, he became really happy and buoyant and just saw the joy in lots of things. So that was a funny sort of change that Joe had to make. My character, so one thing that Mark did is asked us to come up with a moral dilemma. And that moral dilemma then, when we walked through this alley of this room that was filled with mirrors either side, we would see the moral dilemma. So like at a point in our lives, we all made a decision, and then we would see the other side of that. So if my character, let's say, so my one was because I was almost like an archaeologist, like Indiana Jones type operator who was finding artifacts. I had left my old mentor when an artifact in a crypt, and in the reverse situation of that is that I would have saved my mentor. Well, on the other side of the mirror was me if I had saved them. And at one point I touched the mirror and those two people swapped. So I went from playing my original character
Amazing.
to a different one. It was so good. It was so good. And then we played it through and I had to convince everyone to try and break it. And then because I was sort of playing it up and I was like, well, if they break it, the mirrors or not. So if they broke the mirrors, I stayed as the new version of me as opposed to reverting back to the original one. And so I had to try and convince them. So on his bagpipes, Mac Fleetwood was playing the bagpipes and trying to hit a certain pitch to smash the mirrors. And I was like, oh, this is good. And I'm dancing. And then we had never played these characters before. We kind of came up with a short backstory. And Chris said, oh, this isn't like Connor's character, Milosh. He hates my music. Why is he dancing? Why is he encouraging me to dance all the time, me hoping that the glass would break? Anyway, no one wanted to break it. There happened to be this NPC that we had called Graham. So this old lady, but we just called her Gam Gam, like a grandma. And I was so persuasive that I persuaded Gam Gam to smash the mirror so that it could not. So, and then I happened to do it. So I persuaded it. And I was like, is everyone else going to try and like stop Gam Gam from smashing the mirror? So we smashed. It was so good. We ended up finishing about 1:30 in the morning. So it was another really long session, but I'd do it again in a heartbeat. It's so good. Mark is smashing it with these. I'm looking forward to the next one. He just makes it so entertaining. He's got such a gift for this. He actually, I'm not saying this because of what he said to me, but he reached out to me to say thank you. And I think I'm not saying enough or giving him enough praise for what he's doing. I know, Dan, you've spoken to him a little bit about a few different odds and sods, and he has got such a wealth of knowledge with this type of stuff. And to be honest, so does Tom, Chris, and Joe. They are great to play with because they've all had a lot of experience in this sort of situation, whereas I'm very much a newbie. So they know the vibe and those types of things. And if I miss something, they go, oh, but what about this? Shouldn't that have extra dice? Because we do play the game like a game, but at the same time, we're not too fussed if things don't go our way or whatever. But it's great to play with those three. Or I've played every session with Tom, and I've played 2 with Joe now, 1 with Chris, and they've been a wealth of knowledge. And Matt's been awesome to play with too. His sort of dry wit's been really good. And in the last couple of times he's played, it's funny, Matt, if you've ever spoken to Matt, he's a pretty dry type of guy in terms of his humour. And he's played these like small, like not girlish characters, but small female characters, and it's just been funny seeing him play them because it's not how I imagine Matt. He rides BMX and motocross bikes and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been heaps of fun. I could do a whole Patreon podcast about this.
Nice. I would love to try one day. I have. It's just hard, like you say. It's a big session, right? But the sessions are worth it. Like that's the thing, right? When you've got a good GM and a good group, the 4 or 5, 6 hours feels like 2. Oh, I mean, it just goes in a heartbeat.
How do you sleep afterwards? Because I would still be like buzzing for like an hour after something like that.
Oh, it's sort of, I tip over the point of it, all the tiredness, the melanin sort of
just drains out of your body.
I'm like, oh god, I gotta no, melanin's what gives you the tan.
I think I asked you this last time as well, Connor. But how much of it? So doesn't sound like there was any combat in this story. Or was there? Was it all just puzzles and sort of social sort of interaction as characters?
Really interesting you bring that up. So this was a pre-made scenario. That's not to say that Mark put in any less effort or anything like that, but he's got these pre-made scenarios. He sort of does these tweaks and stuff, puts his own spin on it.
Yep.
You could go through this whole scenario and win, and you do not have to have a single fight.
Yeah, right.
We being the combat junkies and Baldur's Gate players, we fought everything we could. And for me, that's a fun side of it, is the combat and being able to use it. Coming from a video game and board game background, that's what it's about. But if we never got into a single combat, it wouldn't bother me either. But I just find that fun. But yeah, this one you definitely could have done without combat. I would say there was slightly less than the previous one we did, which was
the pirate one.
Which was a pirate one.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm sorry if this is slow. All of my sizzles are slowly turning into Dungeons and Dragons. But like I said, I know it's something that you are looking into, Dan, with the role playing, and you've already started on the journey of that. And 80, that you said you're interested. Mark has talked about potentially doing more. It is a huge effort. He's sort of done one once a month at the moment, and I don't really want to put more pressure on him because he's already doing it out of his own back, really. But yeah, like I said, I'm very, very thankful to Mark for running these. Very, very grateful for having me involved, and also for the rest of the people that I've played with, because I've had a blast every time. Doesn't matter who I played with. So yeah, that was our last little D&D sesh. So
awesome.
The sizzles have been D&D. If you haven't heard of that game, well, what in rock have you been living under? Circadians, Chaos Order, and Maki Master. So thanks for that, lads. It's been some good chats, and we'll head over to the announcements and news. All right, so a couple of bits and pieces for today. So the Sydney Game Day is next weekend, so November the 2nd at the Castle Hill RSL. So that is coming up very, very soon. Tickets are pretty much sold out. So if you've got a ticket, you'll have to go onto the wait list. We've got the Brisbane Board Game Barbecue Day on the 16th of November. 80, where's that at? What's the venue?
Royal on the Park.
Royal on the Park, Dana's favourite venue, of course. And, of course, the granddaddy of them all, PlayCon, the 11th to 13th of July next year. It is at the same location, Dan, which is called...
Oh, the Southern Entertainment Centre?
Southern Sydney Entertainment Centre.
Yeah. Put me on the spot, man.
So I should have asked 80. He's the chief behind it. Yes, 80.
The website is now live. So you can head over to www.play-con.com. If you were there last year, potentially you might see yourself in some of the new media and posts that are on there. So yeah, just check it out. Just going to drop this in as well. When we launched the website, I was amazed at the hotel situation and people booking hotels and being like, I mean, I have no idea how many people booked, but it's really nice to see that support. So we really appreciate it. But yeah, book your hotel, get yourself booked in somewhere, and the tickets will go live on November the 6th. But yeah, that was crazy. That night of that launch, seeing the price just skyrocket for the hotels because there's supply and demand like anything, but there are plenty of other options right on the doorstep. There are 2 hotels 150 meters and 250 meters away. They are literally around the corner, and you can walk past and get your dinner on the way home. So yeah, huge thanks to anyone that's supporting the event. Again, we are really excited to do it again. So.
And we've had a lot of questions about Designer Alley, so we'll be making more announcements about Designer Alley in the coming weeks. We'll try and lock something in for everyone before the end of the year, though. So I think earlier this year, we started submissions for Designer Alley around March or stuff. We're going to do it much earlier this time around, and we're going to sort of lock in our winning designers or submissions a lot earlier as well. So keep your eyes on. The best place for you to go is to the website and also on our PlayCon Facebook page. We'll make announcements when there's more information. We're going to try and get some stuff and lock some stuff in before the end of this year, though. So I know there's a lot of designers out there saying, what's happening with Designer Alley? Designer Alley is back. It's going to be bigger and better, and it may not be bigger, but it will be absolutely better. We've got some stuff that we're cooking up for the designers in Designer Alley. So watch this space.
And please don't hold off on getting your tickets, because the wait list will get huge and you'll get upset. Honestly, just get in now, buy your tickets, settle in, and then you'll have a blast of a time. So we are very excited about it.
So tickets for PlayCon will be available on the 6th of November this year. And if you're wanting to go to the Brisbane Board Game Barbecue Day, head along to eventbrite.com and search for the Board Game Barbecue. So looking forward to those events.
Transform your gaming experience with the Table Flippers. The Table Flippers specialise in handcrafted custom game tables that turn your living space into the ultimate gaming arena. Designed for style and functionality, their tables are guaranteed to elevate your game night. Visit thetableflippers.com.au to explore their stunning designs and to order your premium game table today.
Now we'll head on to the responses to the question of last week's pod, which was, what games make you feel dumb and why? So last week I had to embarrass myself as to what games they were. 80, what games do you feel like make you feel dumb? Don't make that face at me.
I'm not making a face. I'm actually looking at my shelf and being like, what games do I just not get? I mean, I put it in there. I didn't understand the dice fishing game for ages.
Oh, yeah.
I kept messing it up, and like I
That
had
was
to roll.
hilarious.
I had to roll a 9 or more to catch the fish, but I was
So you used a D6.
and I had to get a number 1. I had to get a 1. That's part of the rule set. But I was just rolling 1d6, and yeah, I mean that definitely. When I cottoned on slowly what was happening, I was like, "Oh yeah, damn, I'm dumb." Like, yeah, that was probably one of my moments, especially when everyone looked at me as if to say, "What are you doing?" That's always the worst one when other people are all like, "What is that guy doing?" You know. So, other than that, no, I can't. There's nothing that sort of distinctly sticks out to the top of my head. It's always just sort of some silly mistake that I constantly make, and I don't understand how a card or something like that works. So.
What about you, Dan?
For me, I think it's less about feeling dumb, but more about I need to be in the proper frame of mind, and it's usually to play a Lacerda game. I need to be in the right frame of mind to play a Lacerda. I can't put the kids to bed, and then at 9:30, I can't do a def and go, right, I'm going to play a Lacerda game now, because my brain is fried. And then I will literally just stare at the board going, I don't know. I don't have the mental capacity to work out what my next move is going to be. it needs to be like an afternoon sort of setting, or an earlier in the evening sort of setting, where I can still myself, get a drink, and go, right, I'm here for this for the next 3 hours, absolutely. But I can't set up one of those kind of games at like 9-10 o'clock at night and think that I'm going to sort of smash my way through it and be happy with the outcome.
I will actually just put my hand up and fess up to another situation. Anything that involves a bucket load of reading for me, because with my ADHD and my dyslexia, I get like, if I have to read it out, I get all muddled up, then I get nervous and embarrassed. And then I'm not reading this. Like someone else can read this. I'm done. But yeah, it's just, I'm not upset or embarrassed about it, but it does make me laugh sometimes when I get handed a piece of paper that's like words on it, like that would be in Shakespeare or the Bible, and I'm trying to read it out, and I'm like, oh my God, Sherlock, you could just do it yourself, mate. Like, get it gone.
Well, you're concentrating so hard on reading it that none of it actually sinks in at all.
Oh, 100%.
And you've just read 3 paragraphs and not paid attention to any of it. It's like, now I need to read it just for myself.
All right, so we might whip through some of the responses, or get Dan to lead them off.
Yeah, so on Facebook, Shane Murray said, Biogenesis is the game that stumped me. It's the size of a small party game, and it has 2 rule books that are 43 and 22 pages respectively. It's essentially a simulator on the first 4 billion years of life on Earth, with players taking the roles of a single-cell organism battling for survival. Doesn't sound like my kind of thing at all.
That's cool to me.
Yeah, Shinli Huachi said, Gloomhaven, analysis paralysis resulting in a brain lock. Too many good cards, can't decide which one to lose and which one to play. Yep, I think I've been there before. Jimmy Boss, one of our newest Patreons, said, the first time playing Brass Birmingham, it really did my head in. The teach was great, but it was just I was just so overwhelmed trying to understand the rules. Now that I know the rules, it's easily in my top 10s. Top economic games, so thematic. Nice one. Tom Hart said, definitely Barrage. Sorry, Adrian, but this is just so unforgiving that I take forever to take to take a turn to puzzle out how best to use workers through each round whilst dealing with other players ruining your plans constantly. Reckon I average about 8 minutes per turn, which is just depressing for everyone at the table. I appreciate it's just too much AP for me. I've tried to get better in the 3 games I've played, but it's just not happening for me.
I reckon the key to that is just make really poor moves and acknowledge that you're going to lose. Because that's what I do. And it doesn't confuse me. I think I've scored the lowest scores in all 3 of the games, all the games I've played. But yeah, no, I can definitely sympathise with Tom there.
That's a great
There's
one.
a couple of games that I've played with MJ where we've played the duel, like 1-to-1, and she'll look at the board and just, we don't really use the phones in that when we're playing, but she'll be like, you can go on your phone for 5 minutes because she needs to think. Like, and it's just like, yeah, I need to have some proper thinking time. So this is, you can go on the phone or do something. I go make a cup of tea or something, like, you know. So yeah, I can hear it.
Nice. And just one more from Facebook. Joanna Jehanian said, so many, but usually on the first play or two, Scythe, Arc Nova, and I eventually get more confident. The games where I feel stupid are just when it doesn't matter that I've played more games. My brain simply cannot grasp the basic rules. Hive is this game for me. I don't know why. I don't understand it, but I don't. That's fair.
Fair enough.
It's fair. Adrian, do you want to read the second half of the responses?
So we had some people from Instagram. We had married_meeple say, I've never felt more dumb than the one time I tried to play Pipeline. I could not work out how to do anything in that game. I hear you. I've seen people get minus like $200 on the first game. It's a funny beast. So Brett Spiel Sul said, Hadrian's Wall. It is fun, but I don't see how anyone gets lots of points in that game. I hear you. I've never won a game of that. It's really hard, you know, really, really hard. We had Joe Stass say, all of them. I think I just need to face facts.
Hang in there, Joseph.
No,
Hang in there.
And Veskitals said, Bunny Kingdom isn't even a hard game to grasp, but I feel like an absolute baboon playing it. I never win.
We have one more response on X or Twitter by Andy Doherty. On Mars by Vital Lacerda. Too much brain burden. Couldn't connect the dots for how the actions worked and traveling between orbit and planet. That's a very cool mechanism. But if you get stuck, it's effectively like 2 turns. That's done. So yeah, because he's like, I got to wait. And then it's almost 3. Because you got to wait again, and then for it to come back again. And
it depends on what phase of the game you're in. You know, like if you're in the later parts of the game, it's so long it feels like forever.
Yeah. So absolutely brutal. But our new question of the pod is: what games overstay their welcome when you play it at max player count, and why? Dan, what do you think? Do you have anything that comes off the top of the dome?
The only thing I can think of, and I don't really have any specific games, but the ones for me are the ones where the players actually change the game state or change the board. Let's say Fire Tribes, for instance. And so if you have too many players, you play at max player count, it's very hard to actually plan ahead because everything could have completely changed by the time it comes around to your turn. So I wouldn't say, I'm probably not addressing the question properly because it's not necessarily outstaying their welcome, but I certainly think when at max player count for some of those style games, it's almost like you can't really plan ahead. You're kind of just sitting there watching the game and maybe start planning things when the person on your right is having their turn, because anything planning ahead too far in advance is just futile. Pipeline's another example of Barrage is another example of that as well. Because if I start thinking I'm going to go here, I'm going to go there, and then someone takes that spot, someone takes that pipeline, it's like I might as well just wait until it's before my turn, and then I'll have a think about it. Because it's just,
8 minutes later.
Well, yeah, but it's just futile otherwise.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. What about you, Adi? What do you think?
I mean, I played a game of Arkham Horror 3rd edition with 6 people, and we were doing cocktails and stuff as well, and that just divulged into lots of talking between turns, and the 6-player thing just added too many players. There was too much stuff going on. There was too much to control, and you're pulling out the Mythos bag essentially 12 times each round, right?
Yeah.
Like 8 is hard enough with 4 players, but and it just, you have to add a monster, then you get a card, then this happens and that happens. And it slows the game down so much. It grinds it to like a bit of a halt. I think that 4-player is a good number. 3-player, I think, is actually the perfect number for that game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that, it can go up to 6, but I
Should
would
it?
never play it at 6. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, they just put that on the box because it can, but doesn't mean you should, like, yeah.
Yeah. I think games, so you talked about games that change the board state or something along those lines, like similar to that, Dan. Games like Arkham Horror, the living card game, or Too Many Bones, where you actually have to draw up more monsters to deal with to try and balance the play. Sometimes the sweet spot for them is actually 3 players or 2 players or something along those lines. So I think for Too Many Bones, the best number I've played at is 3, because it's got enough of a challenge for you, but it's not too easy that you're not steamrolling them, while having more players gives you more options. And actually sometimes then the baddie count can push you from having like 2 level 5 baddies to a level 20, and that becomes so much harder than trying to do. And depending on what initiative you roll, you could get hit in the first turn for so much damage, and then one of your gearlocks is gone. Similar to Arkham Horror, you have more players and more options to deal with things, but you've got to draw more cards. And then when you have to draw more cards on top of that from the encounter deck, it makes it really, really difficult. Sometimes you just mill through it too quickly, and then you've got to suffer other consequences. So I think games where you have to scale it against an AI or a common opponent or something like that, they're the types of games that can. And again, kind of what you were saying, 80, it's a lot of time in between your turns. So anything where you're having those long, almost the combo statisticity of, I'll do this, then do that, then do this, then do that. And it's 5 or 10 minutes before it gets around to you again. You're like, oh my goodness, you end up having 3 turns in a 2.5-hour game like Dan did in Lords of Vegas. So, yeah. But as per usual, it's not up to us. It's up to you guys in our community. And speaking of our community, we have stated before, and I'll state it again, we could not be running this without our patrons. So thank you for being to our current patrons. If you're interested in supporting this podcast, you can always go to patreon.com/boardgamebarbecue to sign up and donate. You get exclusive episodes. We're having some trivia coming up soon. We do Jackbox party packs as well. If you don't feel like donating, that's fine. There are plenty of other ways to support the podcast without donating. The easiest way is to tell your mates and your friends and your buddies and your compadres, whatever you like to call your group of friends. You could go to Apple Podcasts and leave a star rating and review for us, and even use Spotify's rating system as well. It only takes a few seconds of your time, but it means the world to us. In fact, Dan has a review to read out now. So this is a hang-up, isn't it, Dan? This is a hang-up from the Oaths.
Yeah. One of my oaths from a long, long time ago was if you submit a 5-star review, we will read it out on the show. And we had one just a couple of weeks ago from Heart Attack 023 on Apple Podcasts. They left a review saying, "It's just plain good. I've jumped around between a few board game podcasts, and I can confidently say this one is my favorite. I like the honest and relaxed chat the gang has with each other, and it's clear they all get along really well. All really good actors. I used to feel a bit odd being so into board games, but listening to everyone on here really helps to realize there's heaps of people just like me and not too far away for a change. Like others have said, great banter too. Keep up the great work, Board Game Barbecue." Thank you.
Thanks, mate.
For Heart Attack 023. Really appreciate leaving that.
I would love you to put our acting chops to the test one day, Dan, to see if it tests that theory. Just like a little 5-minute script that we have to do and act out, because I can tell you now it's not going to be good. Mate, it's not going to be DiCaprio level.
Hey, if you want to see us act, and I'm doing these air quotes, go watch the blooper reel of the first ever Board Game Barbecue Awards, and good Lord, we could not read up a script to save ourselves.
That's on our YouTube channel, isn't it?
It's on our YouTube.
Still on there, yeah.
And speaking of our YouTube channel, you can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, X, and of course in the Facebook community. You can also get involved in one of my favorite places to hang out, the Board Game Barbecue Discord. There's so much to do there. I have honestly met some friends that are some of my best friends that I've got at the moment through the Board Game Barbecue Discord. So thank you so much for that. So there's always something to have a chat about, whether that's sport, whether that's video games, whether that's cooking, TV shows, and of course board games. Our game design channel, which we were able to get two game designers to meet each other on the other day, which was awesome. So all the links are in our show notes, and looking forward to seeing you in those communities. All right, this will bring us on to the end of another show. But before we do, let's talk about what's got us fired up. I don't know.
Yeah, we need a bumper or something. Let's see if we can use that. Conor going, fired up.
But we want it to be in a weird Texan American accent. Like I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, let us know. Let us know in what should we do?
Send us one.
Yeah,
how about that? Send us a crazy fired up. Do a bit of Texan accent.
The second week that I did the edit, I tried to use Dana going fired up. Yeah. And I couldn't quite sort of clip it right.
Thank God.
Yeah, I know.
Please do not put yourself in any harm doing fired up. Let's put that out there. 80, what's got you fired up?
I'm really keen to play Circadians with sort of my game group, if you will, at the game day late in the evening, especially because Haig is so good at games. Like, I'm not going to lie. I love that sugar puff monster, but like, I want to see how he goes there, and I hope we can beat him. That's all I care about. Like, if I can get better than Haig.
Do you have to get better, you personally, or you just need Haig to not win?
But either. I'm happy with either.
Yeah, so he's just got to come second, and it's a win.
Pretty much.
Does it play solo? Because I think I have the Melbourne. Oh, I was going to say, because I think I have the Melbourne library copy here at my place, but if it doesn't play solo, I'll just leave it in the garage.
No. There was talk of the AI.
Come on, Sam, lift your game.
Yeah.
Make a solo variant.
Just send it to Dan. So cool. So Circadians and /Haig losing. That's all. Actually, I have to have a go at Dana, because when he answered the question in the pod, I put in the run sheet the legend /myth known as Haig, and she just read him out as Haig, like not the legend or the myth known as Haig. I was disappointed. I know, right? What I'm fired up about is I'm heading to the Sydney Game Day. So I'll be there this weekend. I'm making the trek up. I'm not going up the Hume, but I'll be heading up past the Hume Highway, and I'll be there on the weekend. So looking forward to catching up with all the Sydney siders. I'm going to get to see you at PAX. It'll be good to see you then, and I'll be teaching Altered, which VR Distribution has sent to me. So I'll be teaching that. That'll be cool, and I'll have some of the starter decks there. So if you're interested, let me know. Reach out to me, and we'll see if we can tee up a game. And Dan, you've got some very exciting news that you're fired up.
Yeah, my fired up is actually the first time I've done this. I've never done an oath that wasn't board gaming related, and my fired up is not actually board gaming related for a change. And speaking of things I've never done before, I've never actually taken like a break from the podcast before, so I realized that the timing sucks with Mitch leaving last week. But I had told the guys exactly. But I had told the guys that I wanted to take the month of November off this year for a little thing called NaNoWriMo, which is an international thing that stands for National Novel Writing Month. So I've committed to trying to pump out, over the space of 30 days, 50,000 words, which may not be a novel, might just be the basis of a novel. It's something I've always wanted to try. I did actually attempt this probably about 10 or 15 years ago with middling success. But then I also took a 10-day holiday to Cairns during it as well, and spent more time just at the casino and chilling by the pool than actually writing. So full-time working and full-time writing is going to be an absolute challenge, which is why I'm probably not going to have any time for playing board games. So the guys have said, that's cool, take a month off. I'll be back in December, but I'm going to have a crack at writing a novel. It's something I've always wanted to do. I know that it's not going to be, I'm not trying to write the great Australian novel. I'm not trying to write some sort of cultural milestone. It's more of just a personal milestone for me. I've always wanted to try. And so, yeah, I am taking part in National Novel Writing Month. If there's anyone else out there who's taking part in NaNoWriMo as well, reach out. We can support each other. We may have some other budding writers in our Discord or in our community. It'd be great to hear from you. But I'll be back in December and I can check in. I think it was Conor that actually suggested, hey, you should do a Patreon pod and debrief on how I went. I was going to go into it completely cold and not plan anything, but I can't help myself. I had this idea cooking up, which was very sort of loose in my head, but now I've started to plot it out a little bit. So I will be going into it with a bit of a skeleton, which is probably a wise thing to do. But yeah, I'll check back in a month and let you know how I go.
That's actually really cool and really exciting. I was going to say something, well, it wasn't going to be funny because it came from me, but I was worried it was going to be taking the piss, so I won't. And I'll just wish you luck. And,
yeah, cheers. I think
you're
I'll
still
need
going
it.
to be around and stuff like that, so it's not like you're going.
No.
It should not be named, but yeah, no, it'd be a good month, and I'm looking forward to talking to you after it and seeing what you get out of it.
I think there'll be some learnings from it, whether I succeed or fail. There'll be some good learnings from it. I mean, I've already started. I'm timing it at the same time I'm joining the 5 a.m. club. I've already started getting up. I'm getting up at Adrian hours. I've been slowly winding my get up from 6 a.m. to 5:30, and this week I'll be starting to get up at 5 a.m. because I think that's when I need to start writing. Because at the end of the day, after work, after the kids go to bed, I'm knackered. So I'm going to be getting up at 5 a.m. every day and trying to pump out get some stuff on paper before basically the kids go to school and start work. So we'll see how that little experiment goes as well. Yeah. And if I'm back on the pod in a week or two, then you'll know that it was a complete disaster and I've given up and I'm board gaming again.
Well, Conservus is on your back, on the back of your shelf there. So just don't get that out and start twiddling with it.
Oh, I'm locking my phone away. It's really just going to be me and a notepad and a pencil.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's really good. We wish you well. And that brings us to the end of another episode. That's episode 317 in the bag. As per usual, thanks, lads. Thanks for joining me.
Cheers, brother.
Good chats.
Yeah, good chats. And like I said, if you're at the Sydney Game Day this weekend, please come up and say hello. If we have or haven't met before, I'd be interested to, I'll be happy to sit and have a yarn or whatever. And whatever happens for you this week, I hope you enjoy playing some games, and we'll see you all again next week. Thanks again, lads.
Bye.
Bye. Wow, that is good luck kicking that in if you want. Hey, all the more power to you. Wow, that's
Connor's stumped. He's stumped.
I don't know whether I'm going to keep that in the edit or not.
Definitely.
Mitch, you mutt.